If you have ever called yourself indecisive, then stop. Because I'm indecisive isn't a personality trait. It's not even a character flaw. And it's definitely not something you were born with. What you're actually doing is making one of four very specific errors that decision scientists have been studying for the last 60 years. And once you can name them, you can fix them. And you stop carrying around the story that there's something wrong with you. Here's what I've learned from reading the research. Almost nobody is bad at deciding across the board. People get stuck in specific situations, and when you look at why, the same four patterns show up again and again and again. So, what I want to do today is this: I'll name each of the four errors, show you the study or the researcher behind it, and then give you a simple fix that actually has evidence behind it. Now, by the end, I want I'm indecisive to feel like a lazy diagnosis, because what's actually going on is far more solvable than that. Error number one: you don't know what you're actually optimizing for. And most of the time, when we think that we're comparing two options, we're not really comparing them at all. We're just staring at them because we've never defined what we're looking for in the first place. There's a decision scientist called Ralph Keeney who spent decades at Duke and USC studying how people actually make decisions. In his 1992 book, Value Focused Thinking, published by Harvard University Press, he made a very uncomfortable argument. He said, most of us do decision making backwards. We start with the options: 2 apartments, 3 job offers, 5 laptops, and then we try to work out what we want. Keeney's argument is that this is the wrong order. The options shouldn't come first, your values should. Before you even look at alternatives, you have to answer, what am I actually trying to achieve here? What do I care about the most? What can I not compromise on? He calls this value-focused thinking. And the reason it works is simple. Once your criteria are clear, most options qualify themselves. The stuck feeling disappears because you're no longer comparing apples to oranges with no sense of whether you want fruit at all. Try this right now for whatever you're currently stuck on. Before you look at your options again, write down 3 things. 1. What do I want more of in my life if this decision goes well? 2. What am I not willing to sacrifice? And 3. What would make me look back in a year and say, that was the right call? That's your rubric. Hold every option against it. You are not indecisive, you're criterialess. That is a completely different problem and it has effect. Error number 2. You're drowning in options you didn't need. You sit down to pick a restaurant. 30 minutes later, you're still scrolling. Not because you don't know what you want, but because every new option you see makes the last one feel not quite right. And there's a name for this in the research. It's called choice overload. In the year 2000, Columbia psychologist Sheena Iyengar and Stanford's Mark Lepper published a paper in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology called When Choice is Demotivating. They ran an experiment in a gourmet grocery store. Half the day, shoppers saw a table with 6 varieties of jam. The other half, the same table, had 24. More jams pulled a bigger crowd as you'd expect. But here's a twist. The people in front of the biggest selection were about 10 times less likely to actually buy anything. More options, less action. And before you think that that's just about jam, in 2015, Alexander Chernev and colleagues at Kellogg published a meta-analysis in the Journal of Consumer Psychology that pulled together 99 studies on this effect. It holds up, especially when the options are hard to compare. When you don't already know what you want, and when you're trying to decide quickly, what this means for your life is uncomfortable. Most of the time you feel indecisive, the problem isn't you. The problem is that modern life, dating apps, streaming, online shopping, job boards, is engineered to show you more. And more doesn't help you choose, more freezes you. The fix here is almost anti-modern. Artificially narrow your pool before you start evaluating. Decide, I will look at 3 jobs, not 30, 3 apartments, not 15, 2 restaurants within a 10-minute walk, not 50. You are not bad at deciding, you're just trying to make a decision from a set that's designed to make deciding impossible. Error number 3. You're deciding in a state that won't last. There's a Carnegie Mellon behavioral economist named George Loewenstein. In 1996, he published a paper in Organizational Behavior and Human Decision Processes titled Out of Control: Visceral Influences on Behavior. It's one of the most important decision papers of the last 30 years, and nobody outside academia talks about it. Loewenstein's argument is this: when you're in what he calls a hot state, hungry, angry, scared, aroused, heartbroken, exhausted, your brain doesn't just feel different. It actually weights your options differently. Whatever relieves the hot feeling starts looking enormously attractive, and everything else fades. And here's the part that matters for our topic. When you're in that hot state, you think your current preferences are your real preferences. You can't picture yourself in a calmer state. You project yourself forward and assume future you will want exactly what right now you wants. He called this the hot-cold empathy gap, and he extended it in a 2005 paper in the Journal of Health Psychology. A beautiful follow-up study by Michael Sayete, Loewenstein, and colleagues in 2008 in Psychological Science showed this clearly. Smokers who were not craving badly underestimated how much they'd want to smoke in the next session. Smokers who were craving overestimated it. Neither group could accurately see the other state from inside their current one. Now translate that to your life. The quit the job decision at 11 p.m. after a terrible day. The I'm done with this relationship text after a fight. The I'll never eat sugar again promise right after a big meal. Those aren't decisions. Those are mood talking. So the rule is simple, and it comes straight out of this research. For any decision that has real consequences, never make it in a hot state. Wait until you're rested, fed, calm, and the situation isn't actively poking at you. Give it 24 hours if you can. You are not indecisive, you're trying to decide while emotionally hijacked. And those are not the same thing. Error number 4. You're refusing to decide until you feel certain. And certainty is never coming. This is the one I think is the quiet killer, because it doesn't feel like indecision, it feels like being responsible. In 1961, a young Harvard economist called Daniel Ellsberg, yes, the same one who later leaked the Pentagon Papers, published a thought experiment in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. Imagine 2 urns. The first contains 50 red balls and 50 black balls exactly. The second contains 100 balls in some unknown mix of red and black. You get paid if you draw red. Statistically, your odds are the same. A rational decision maker should be indifferent. But Ellsberg found, and decades of follow-up research have confirmed, that people overwhelmingly pick the first urn. Not because it gives them better odds, because it gives them known odds. And this is called ambiguity aversion. We don't just dislike bad outcomes, we actively avoid situations where we can't put a number on the uncertainty, even when walking away costs us. Now, here's why this matters for your daily life. The decisions you're stuck on, the career change, the move, whether to start the thing, almost all of them live in the second urn. You cannot calculate them. You cannot know what will happen, and the research says you will keep delaying them, researching them, spreadsheeting them, not because more information will actually resolve the question, but because ambiguity itself feels like a threat that your brain wants to eliminate. It won't eliminate. Real decisions live in ambiguity. Waiting for certainty is waiting for a condition that will never arrive. The antidote comes from a Nobel laureate, Herbert Simon. Back in 1955, he coined the word satisficing. It means set a standard for good enough, pick the first option that clears that standard, and stop looking. Don't optimize, don't maximize, satisfies. Combine that with something a psychologist called Peter Gollwitzer introduced in 1999 in the journal American Psychologist. He called them implementation intentions. They're tiny if-then plans. If it's Monday at 9 a.m., I will start the application. If I haven't decided by Friday, I will go with option A. A 2006 meta-analysis by Gollwitzer and Pascal Sheeran across 94 studies and thousands of participants found a medium to large effect size, roughly D equals 0.65, on whether people actually followed through on their goals. So here's how you break the certainty trap. Write down the minimum acceptable version of a good decision, and that's your satisficing bar. Then write an if-then. If I haven't chosen by date, I will pick option and move on. You're not indecisive. You're waiting for a feeling of certainty that was never on the menu to begin with. So let's recap, because the whole point of this video is that I'm indecisive is a vague label that hides 4 very specific, very fixable problems. 1. You don't know your criteria. Fix it by writing down what you're actually trying to achieve before you look at options. 2. You have too many options. Fix it by narrowing your pool on purpose before you start comparing. 3. You're deciding in a hot emotional state. Fix it by waiting. Give yourself a day. And 4. You're waiting for certainty that isn't coming. Fix it by satisficing and by giving yourself a deadline in the form of a simple if-then plan. Notice what none of this requires. It doesn't require you to be more decisive as a person. It doesn't require willpower. It doesn't require you to trust yourself more. It just requires you to recognize which of the 4 you're doing and use the specific fix for that one. And the most freeing thing I've learned from all this research is that there's no such thing as an indecisive person. There are only people who haven't yet noticed which of these 4 errors they're stuck in. If this helped, tell me in the comments which of the 4 hit closest to home. I read every comment and your answers shape what I cover next. And if you're new here, please subscribe. Every week I take one small mental habit that quietly decides how our lives go, and I try to make it 5% easier to get right. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.